Hey everyone, it's Karen. I hope you all had an amazing week and are getting buckled up for the weekend. I wanted to share with you what I read over the past week. I think I am up to 11 books that I own that I have read in the past 2 weeks, but I'm not quite sure. So anyway, I want to share a vegan recipe with you guys today. And so I read this book straight from the earth, and I decided to make a curried yellow split pea soup because I already had most of the ingredients, and it was so good. Like, this is a library book, but I definitely need to write down the recipe before I return it. I put way too many vegetables in there because I just love vegetables so much, and so I doubled the spices and I doubled the like vegetable, I can't remember if it was broth or stock, vegetable broth, but I probably could have used some more vegetable broth to make it into an actual soup, so it was more like a thick chili or something, but it was so good. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. So definitely worth checking out that book and using the recipe, or maybe pausing the video and trying to zoom in and see the recipe. The first real book that I read was If You Tell by Greg Olson. This book I've already done a separate review on. It was the most intense book I've ever read in my entire life. I read it in one sitting, and it's around 400 pages because it was so intense and I just had to know. Basically, really quickly, it is the story of this mom who had a hot mess of a childhood, and was a hot mess of a child, to be quite honest. Like, she used to put glass in people's shoes, broken glass, so that when they stepped in their shoes, they would get glass in their feet. She has some issues. Then she became a mom, and you can only imagine what she was like as a mom to her children. I have read a lot of stories of abuse. Forgot what it's called, A Child Called It. I've read a lot of Tori Hayden books. To me, this was like the worst. But anyway, if you are curious more, you can watch my separate review. I read a lot of children's books this week. I think I read 3. 1, 2, 3, yep. And so the next one I read was so good, I also did a separate review of this, and this is The Parker Inheritance. Basically, this girl, Candace, goes back to a town where her grandma used to live, and her grandma kind of had a bad end in that town. She thought there was a buried treasure underneath these tennis courts. She decided to dig it up in the middle of the night. She got fired from her job, and everyone laughed at her. So, and then at the time this story starts, the grandma had been dead about 2 years. And so Candace is living in her house for the summer while her parents are going through some stuff. And she finds this logic puzzle book, which Candace is such a nerd. This is why I love this book, that she loves logic puzzles and stuff like that. And inside the puzzle book, there's a letter. Okay, sorry, my alarm went off, so I'm clipping these together. Candace got a letter, the same letter that her grandma got, and basically she decides she is going to solve the mystery that her grandma was not able to solve with her friend from across the street. Now, there are so many interesting gender things going on in this story because this boy, Brandon, he is definitely interested in reading girl books, what he calls girl books, and he just doesn't fit the norm of what a boy should be like. He gets teased so much. There are some other characters in the book that are gay or just have different things going on. So there's a lot of gender sort of stuff, LGBTQ. There's also a ton of race stuff in this book, and how these kids are treated in this town. So it is basically the Westing game redone with more up-to-date themes, and it's just an incredible book because if I had a child, I would want their library to just include all these different types of books so that they could be exposed to a lot of different stuff. And this book is amazing just for the plot alone, but then it explores all these other things and exposes kids to all these different issues. So if you're interested in more in this book, you can definitely watch the separate review of it. Then my signed book of the month from Parnassus this month was The Cold Millions by Jess Walter, and it's signed. I definitely was excited about this book. I read it the day it came out. I thought the cover looked so cool. I didn't like it. It wasn't that it was poorly written, like it was written really well. It's just I wasn't interested in the story. Like I just didn't care. It was kind of like a gangster feel, I guess, that I wasn't interested in. So I'm not saying other people would not like it, but I did not like it. Okay, then I read The Book Wanderers, which is this first in the series where basically this girl, I forgot her name. Oh, Tilly. Of course it's Tilly. Tilly grows up with her grandparents who own a bookstore, and basically, like, they can kind of travel in books and have the characters in books come out of the books, which is amazing if it's a sweet, lovely book. But could potentially be dangerous if the book is more intense. You know, like, for example, I would never want anyone to come out of this book. So this is the first book, and it is just about Tilly kind of exploring her abilities and the abilities of her grandparents. She also, her mom just disappeared when she was like a baby, I think. And so there's always this question of like, where the heck is my mom? Why would she just up and leave me? And then her dad also died when she was a baby too, and so there's that question as well. It was really good. I loved all the book references. It made me want to read some books that I hadn't gotten to before. And, oh, the other thing I really like is, obviously this is a children's book, but as an adult reading it, you, like, know stuff that a child might not know. Like, there was a character named Lizzie who her grandma was talking to, and, like, all the adults would be like, Pride and Prejudice, you know, but the kids might not know that. So I like books and movies where adults can enjoy them along with kids, because there's a different level that they can access that kids might not be able to. Then I read The Prince and the Dressmaker, which is a graphic novel, and it was so lovely. It is about basically this dressmaker who is super talented, and so this guy hires her, and she goes to this castle thinking that she's going to make dresses for the princess. But when she arrives, the princess will not let herself be shown or seen. And finally she's like, dude, I can't like make you dresses if I can't see you. So the princess is like, okay, and then like allows her to be seen, but with a covering over her head. And finally it turns out that it's not a princess at all, but the prince. And the prince enjoys wearing dresses and looking beautiful. And so, yeah, this is like a journey into that whole idea and just like comfort and being yourself. And yeah, I really, really, really liked it. Okay, then I read Range, which I got from the library a day or two before Bill Gates published his list where he mentioned this book, so I did not. There's a hair hanging from it. That's so gross. I did not know that he put this on his list when I got it, and okay, here are my notes. So let me talk about this book. I really wanted to buy it because it was so good, but I decided no, I don't need to. One, because I'm doing the year of reading one's own, and two, because I got the general gist of the book. So I will talk about the general gist, and then I'll try and figure out what the heck I was talking about on my notes. Basically, Range is talking about how there are a lot of parents, particularly tiger moms, which I didn't realize that term came from Tiger Woods and a book that his mom wrote. Anyway, who really want their children to do well, and so they are so strict, and they like will get them involved in a sport or a musical instrument or whatever. And then they have to practice all this time. And like if they're in a sport, they have to do it during the season, and they have to practice during the off season. And it's just like so intense. And this book is essentially saying that it's better for kids to explore lots of different things and figure out for themselves what they want to do later, like a sport they want to focus on or a musical instrument they want to focus on, and just how much more successful they are when they have a broad range of background experiences. So let me go to my notes and try. I was just like, I don't even know. So I already talked about Tiger Mom. I had no idea like that term came from Tiger Woods' mom. So that was very interesting. Um, they there was some study. This book had so many different stories and stats and all that sort of stuff that I would love to go back and reread, and I've had so much I want to underline, but I get the gist of the book, so I don't need to. There is like basically this thing comparing kids who had one instrument and kids who were exposed to 3 or more instruments, and the kids who had 3 or more instruments did better. I also thought this was interesting about just your family dynamic. And it turns out that kids who had 6 or more rules in their home were just kind of typical kids. And the kids who had 1 or fewer rules were the more creative ones. Now, I am super, super creative, not in the traditional sense, like I'm not very good at drawing or art or things like that. But I definitely think that I am very creative, like in the classroom and teaching and imagination and all that sort of stuff. And so I was trying to think, did I have rules when I was growing up? And the truth is, I don't remember rules. I remember that I had to like kind of have situational awareness and act in an appropriate and kind way. Like it's not like I was just like a feral child, but I don't remember rules. I don't remember curfews. I don't remember things like that. And I asked my mom, and she was like, "Yeah, you had a lot of rules," but she couldn't name any of them. So I don't think that I had rules. I think there was just kind of an expectation on how to be a good human in my home, which is different than having rules. So I'm going to say that is true for me. There was also this discussion on how, here's the quote, everyone needs habits of the mind that allow them to dance across disciplines. And so there's just this idea in the text that having a way of thinking is better than prior knowledge. So being able to be really flexible and handle yourself in any sort of situation. That's also important because basically anytime where you have to learn the rules to something, in your career, for example, that is a situation where your career could one day be automated. And so, this really creative thinking sort of thing is very important for careers where you will be able to keep your job because they will not be done by robots. And as a teacher, one of the things I thought most interesting was this idea of how math instruction goes. I think that things have improved with the Common Core. I think that people hate the Common Core, but listen, I'm a huge fan. Um, but basically, they were talking about how in America and other countries, there's more of a focus on procedures. Like you will teach them multiplication or something, and then you'll show them a way to do it. My favorite way is multiplication with arrays and the different boxes. And okay, anyway, actually, I think that's called area. But they were saying that in Japan, they might spend an entire class period doing one problem, and that all the kids' answers and all the kids' thinking is like just plastered all over the board, even thinking that is wrong. And there's just this huge discussion on different ways of thinking and the problem and how to figure it out. And that is called, I'm not sure if I'm saying this right, but Bancho. And I just really love that it makes it more into like a treasure hunt or a problem solving puzzle sort of thing. I know that Esme Raji Kodal used to call her math class puzzling, and like that really is what it is. It makes it so much more fun. And it also teaches those skills, like you can conquer any problem, you know, for the most part. You just have to have those thinking skills and try and persist. And there's not that learned helplessness in that type of math. And giving hints to kids undermines that problem solving process. And yeah, then I wrote something else. I have no idea what it means, but that's the extent of that book. And my last book is Howard's End is on the Landing. This is the book I own. It's also a book I've read before, but I reread it because basically this is about Susan Hill, who wrote a bunch of Gothic books, The Woman in Black or something like that. it is about her year of reading from home. So this is kind of similar to a year of reading one's own. Basically, she just found that she has so many books in her home. She has so many books that she like doesn't she's not able to find this particular one that she wants. And she kind of wanders from room to room and is like, "Oh my gosh, I have so many books I haven't read that I want to read, or books that I would love to reread." And she just launches into this whole year of reading one's own. And then there are so many like smaller essays in here about different things related to reading. So if you like books about books, you would probably like this. One thing that I adored is that she is not so much a Jane Austen fan. And I try and force myself to love Jane Austen, but I'm really not a fan, to be quite honest. Like, she's okay. I don't know. I feel like I should like her more than I do. And so I was like, yeah, girl, get it. And then she also talked about how magical Roald Dahl is, but she met him in real life and he was completely an asshole. So I thought that was interesting too. Yeah, lots of good stuff in there. So that's what I read this week. I am excited to watch your Friday Reads videos and all that sort of stuff. See what you read this week, see what you're interested in reading for next week. I just started an amazing book. I don't know the title because it is nowhere near me, but it is so good. It's basically about this therapist who rescues this guy who's about to commit suicide from a bridge, and then they seem to be becoming friendly. I don't know. It's really good. I will see you guys soon. Bye.